British researchers in the journal Ethics, as published by the American Medical Association, are suggesting that people be forced to participate in studies and trials for vaccinations. Actually, they also said that they had another idea, and that was to make it so that it would be mandatory to choose whether you wanted to be in the vaccination trial or not.
Well, see, this is what happens when you have overzealous people who are in research that are looking through tunnel vision at their own little studies and what
they want to have better studies, and they don't want to use animals, I guess.
Well, you can't use animals for clinical trials for people. You have to do it on people. And so they are wanting to do something where they can force people to be in their clinical trials. It's outrageous. I mean, it's like Nazi Germany. You can't force people to do human experimentation.
Except for, you know what, it seems like it would be easy to just go ahead and do the trials on people that have already had the vaccinations and people that didn't want to get them.
Well, their problem is getting people into the study to try the vaccines before they try them on another experiment, which is on all of mankind, okay, because they're putting it out there for the world to use. And almost always, I would say probably with few exceptions, immunizations are done on people when they are approved by the FDA and insufficient clinical trials have been done. So the real massive experiments being done on with the people.
And not everybody, but a lot of people are getting these vaccinations, especially like the flu vaccination, for example. And there's really no scientific evidence that it works.
Well, there's no scientific evidence that it's safe. There are no real clinical trials. Plus, who's doing the clinical trials? You know, you have Big Pharma doing the clinical trials, and you got the FDA involved with it, which is in bed with the pharmaceutical companies and with the CDC. So what you have is an incestuous relationship that by proclamation says vaccines are great.
And they're also trying to say that it's not ethical, I guess, to not have the vaccine.
Right. With the flu vaccine, they're saying we would do clinical trials, except that everybody needs it. Well, that's what happens when you have overly zealous people who are researchers that want to be sure that studies are done and done the way they want to do them, and that people will be forced to participate in them. But the problem is this. We've got a whole system here where we've got an industry that by proclamation is assumed to be the cat's meow. And it's not proven that it's the cat's meow. One good example would be the research that was done on the swine flu vaccine in 2009 before it came out. It was outrageous the way I followed things that happened through the FDA and the CDC and the World Health Organization and the White House over a period of about 9 months to see the lies and falsified data and information that was being presented that just wasn't backed up by anything. And because it was put out by these famous organizations, they just assumed that this was good stuff, but it's not.
Well, you wrote an article called The Infection Deception.
Go to the website.
On the website.
You know, go to drsabuto.com, put in the infection deception down, and up will come 2 parts. Look at part 1, because it's the part that tells the story of what happened and how they came to the conclusions that they did.
And that the swine flu vaccine was actually just a scam.
It was definitely a scam. There's no question about it. In fact, the article that I wrote was published in the Townsend Letter for Doctors and Patients, and it's well referenced. So you'll have a scientific piece of information here that tells the story more honestly than anything else I've seen.
I think people should also be aware of some of the things that are in vaccines. You know, besides dead viruses, sometimes there's live viruses.
That's right.
And there's mercury. Everybody kind of knows about the mercury thing, but there's aluminum and
fragments of DNA,
and formaldehyde and...
Well, we should at least be scientific about it. I'm not saying vaccines don't work. They could, but I'd like to see the proof that they work. And the way that you do that is you give the vaccine to one group and you don't give it to another group. Then you see what happens during a certain period of time. Then you can tell if the vaccine caused fewer cases of whatever the vaccine was trying to prevent, and how many side effects we saw from the vaccine. So when you have a study like that, it's scientific. But when you come up with a statement that says, we can't do these studies because it's not ethical, then you'll never know the answer. And what you have is people making statements that they can't back up.
Well, the other thing that happens frequently is that you get extreme points of view from the complementary alternative side and from the mainstream medicine side.
Exactly. The complementary and alternative people in general are against vaccines because they say the science isn't that good. And people from the mainstream say, well, of course it's good. And each side exaggerates it too much. just like with this particular study that was done and published in what? The Journal of Ethics by the AMA. I mean, they're basically
kind of a
saying,
funny name for the journal, Ethics.
Well, it would be ironic in this particular case to have it published in a journal with that name, because they're making a lot of assumptions, and the suggestions that are made by these authors from Britain are really outrageous. They're talking about, should we really be forcing people to participate in studies just like we force them to be in the service, the Army or Navy or Air Force?
Sounds like Nazi Germany.
Well, it does. And at the same time, what they concluded in their article, that most of the people that reported on this topic, was that, well, maybe the best solution is just to get people to declare that they will or won't be willing to be in these studies. Well, I don't think we need any of this stuff, and I'm opposed to it, but I'd like to see both sides honestly presented, and we rarely see that. So this whole business about the safety of vaccine and their effectiveness takes new research. We need to look at what happens in clinical trials that are good. We also need to look at the other side of the complementary alternative people who are saying things like, too many side effects, it's not proven. Go to vactruth.com. It's vactruth.com, or drtenpenny.com to get that side of the story. So, should we participate in vaccine trials that are mandated? Absolutely not. This should be by choice. Everybody has a right to decide what they're going to do when it comes to things that could be dangerous to our health.